Imagine Kirlie Cries shaving her cheek, standing by herself in the limelight, and apologizing so deeply that it trembles the core of Atlanta's love and hip-hop. For weeks, there have been rumors of a covert pregnancy and a failing marriage. Karlie's remarks now seem to validate all of the rumors. As fans watched her try to find the perfect words, emotions were running high. Years of suffering and sorrow are carried in every tear. The guy who used to be the center of her existence, Kirk, is apparently ecstatic about the prospect of a new life. As their relationship breaks down, audiences are astounded by Kirk's and Karlie's vulnerability. Unexpected joy in the middle of controversy. There is a split among the family between those who understand her hardship and others who doubt her timing. What does this admission signify for Karlie's future, and can Kirk's heartbreak and happiness coexist? The laws of reality might be rewritten at this combustible time, so pay attention. Drama. No one can predict where the next turn will lead. As Karlie Red entered the circle of lights, her voice faltered and the studio became still, as if the walls were holding their breath. Her cheeks were wet with tears, glistening in the spotlight of flashes from cameras that would normally celebrate her exaggerated image. She said, "I want to say I'm sorry," in a voice that was almost audible above a whisper, but in some way every Emma bore the weight of all the headlines that had been written about her in the last several weeks. When they see this side of Karlie, fans are shocked. The strong reality star had to face her own errors in front of the world after taking off her armor. The actors looked at each other hesitantly, not knowing how to react to her honest revelation, and emotions were running high. The family was split between those who were sympathetic to her bravery and others who concerned that the apology was just another publicity gimmick. Karlie went on, wiping her face with a shaky palm. Every syllable was laced with remorse. I let fear keep me silent when I should have spoken the truth," she said, her voice quivering under the pressure. "Because I let rumors about my personal life overshadow the friendships and careers we built together." Her gaze went across her co-star's features, lingering on the camera, feeds that showed every detail of her to millions of viewers. And the apology reverberated throughout the studio and in the hearts of people who had seen her develop an empire on self-assurance and flair. Now, at a vulnerable moment, audiences are surprised to see that even reality stars struggle with the same fears we do. Karlie's eyes lowered and her shoulders slumped as the silence grew, suggesting a secret more weighty than sorrow. "There's something else I've been carrying," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. She raised her eyes, and the group let out a collective gasp. "I may be expecting a baby." With murmurs of pregnancy and new life fluttering in the air, emotions were running high when the confession came like a thunderclap, turning her sincere apologies into a bombshell that may change every connection in her circle. Control room. The family was split, with some reaching for Kleenex and sympathy, and others frowning, questioning and doubting the timing. Unbeknownst to Karlie and the Unsimera drama, Kirk stood just outside the set headset, still hooked to his ear, looking at the scripts and monitors with the producer's eye, assessing how this would impact their own. A little victorious grin curled his lips as he thought, "This is the blessing I've been waiting for." And his countenance changed from professional concentration to private delight. When he heard the whispered rumor of her pregnancy, awaiting, fans are astounded by Kirk's response, seeing a guy known for his abrasive arguments, suddenly becoming more amenable to the idea of starting a new life with Karlie. Despite the fact that their marriage had been on the verge of disintegration, the contrast between Karlie's cries of regret and Kirk's silent happiness caused everyone watching to question, "If love was really there, my marriage has been crumbling for months." Karlie straightened back in the studio as if collecting herself for the consequences of her disclosure. "I could withstand controversy when hope came in the shape of an unborn child. We fought, we hurt each other, and we never found a way back to where we started," she continued in a determined tone. Fans are surprised by the depth of her sadness, and the others in the circle felt the quake as the revelation appeared to burst open a dam of shared anguish. The family was split, and some suggested that a pregnancy may heal a damaged relationship. Emotions were strong as they recognized the old anguish of promises violated. Others argued that it was risky to bring a kid into a broken partnership. Karlie took a brave moment to look into her castmates' faces and reach out with words as delicate as the tears on her cheeks. She closed her eyes against the sting of new tears and said, "I told myself that a baby would fix everything, that it would bring us back to love. However, I now see that life isn't a plot twist to end drama." Fans are amazed by her lucidity in the face of agony. Emotions ran high as they sensed her progress, even as her world looked to fall apart. The crew members and off-camera aides clutched their collective breath. The family was split, with some giving mute nods of understanding and others exchanging wary glances as they considered how her trip would influence their own paths. Then, as Karlie looked toward the wings, a low voice flowed through the stage. She halted as if sensing Kirk's presence through the lens and gave him a silent acknowledgement. Where he had momentarily appeared on monitor feeds, the camera panned out, catching both the tensions heating as spectators considered Kirk's part in this unfolding. And emotions ran high at the unspoken tie between him and the confession circle and his faraway shadow near the call room. Drama, the manner that past love and current controversy merged in a single picture, astounded fans with a glance's subtle intensity. Karlie raised her chin, allowing a glimmer of optimism to shine through her grief in spite of the storm of disclosures. If this pregnancy is real, she whispered quietly, the moment seemed precious. Despite the brightness of reality, television threatening to gobble it up, her palm touched her belly, an intuitive action that said volumes. I want to confront it with truth, not secrets. The family was split between applauding her candor and worrying about the consequences of transforming her private life into a public spectacle, and fans are astounded by her determination, their hearts racing as they envision the difficulties that lie ahead. With hands flying with cue cards, a production assistant yelled for continuation just as the passion peaked. Karlie, I'm ready to own my tale, she said, taking a last, calming breath and giving the team one more look. Her voice was stronger but tinged with vulnerability. The words were a watershed. I want to regain trust with Kirk, with all of you, and with myself. Fans are astonished by the transformational force of her journey. An apology had turned into a confession, and a confession now created the foundation for redemption. The family was split between the optimism and the seriousness of Karlie's discoveries, and emotions were running high as they prepared for what would happen next. That reality may mend scars too deep to overlook. The studio was alive with tense energy as the cameras kept rolling, catching every glimmer of unease and interest. Following the emotional admission, Yandi stood close by, arms crossed, as Karlie collapsed onto a soft sofa, somewhat off-center, her body drooping with fatigue. Fans are surprised by the tension that rose as Kirk Frost strode behind the lens, headphones dropping from one ear, his thoughts racing with uncertainty and expectation. His hands crossed, a silent sentinel, ready to act if the piece cracked again. The family was split, emotions running high, every breath heavy with possibilities. A production assistant gestured for silence, but the set was still rife with unanswered questions, while some murmured that this pregnancy may mend past scars, while others worried it would only make them worse. Standing in the wings, Erica moved forward to console Karlie, kneeling next to her and saying softly, "You did what you had to do." Karlie nodded slightly, her eyes downcast, and said, "I told the truth, but now I'm scared." Kirk stopped walking and turned to observe the situation as Erica's hand found Karlie's shoulder, a soothing anchor. "I confessed," she said. In contrast to his often gruff demeanor, Kirk's face melted with real emotion, shocking his fans. As the tension among the actors developed as news of Karlie's revelation spread, emotions were running high as they caught this rare peek of the man behind the controversy. With her phone in hand, Angel hurried over to the producer's monitor and played back snippets of the confession. "Did you see Kirk's reaction?" Eat's eyes widened as the video replayed, and he seemed relieved as she spoke to Yvette. "This could be a game changer," she said, and Angel nodded with a somber face. "Almost happy," she remarked. Fans are surprised that even Karlie's closest friends made predictions about Kirk's response before he ever spoke a word. Emotions were running hot backstage as alliances changed in whispers. The crew emptied out as the executive producer called for a break, leaving the three of them in a comparatively private bubble. Kirk walked slowly toward Karlie, his customary swagger giving way to a timid tenderness. He murmured in a quiet voice, I want you to know how much I care." Karlie looked up, her eyes flickering with vulnerability. "I know," she said quietly. "This isn't what I expected, but I'm ready to stand by you," Kirk said with a sigh and a hand over his hair. Fans are astounded by Kirk's steadfast allegiance. The family was split, and emotions were running hot as they sensed his genuineness. Sensing the delicate moment, Yandi extended a kind but strong invitation, balancing the optimism that love may last with the cynicism resulting from previous betrayals. She gestured to a tiny conference table and said, "Let's talk through what comes next." Karlie and Kirk looked at each other and then followed her. The room appeared to change into a war room of emotional strategy as they took their seats. At the table where the producer spread up cue cards labeled Next Steps, Kirk nodded as Yandandi leaned forward and spoke earnestly, listing the necessity for limits, communication, and honesty. firmly. "No more secrets," he swore. Karlie took a breath and stole herself. Fans are astounded by their collective strength. As they observed solidarity built under crises, emotions ran high. "I want truth above all," she remarked. Chantel observed with a critical glitter in her eyes, tapped her lips reflectively, and then intervened. She said, arms crossed, "If you're serious about this, you need to prepare for backlash. Tabloids will spin it as scandal, not hope." Kirk's jaw, he challenged. "Then we spin it ourselves." Chantel nodded, her eyes blazing with reverence. The strategy immediately took form, and she agreed that we would portray it as a voyage of redemption. Media teases unguarded interviews and deliberately disseminated images. The tactical change stunned fans, and they felt intense emotions as they understood that every action was now a planned story. The family was torn between sincere optimism and manipulative cynicism. Kirk and Karlie left the meeting after Karlie leaned across the table, her fingers touching Kirk's, and lingered dropped two low tones. "I'm not sure whether I can trust myself or I'll earn it," she said, and Kirk's face softened with regret. "Return," he promised. "I was genuine." The scene glowed with the possibility of a turning point in their narrative. The family was split, caught between two opposing viewpoints, and fans were astonished by the vulnerability revealed, anticipating another sorrow and hoping for reconciliation. The director ordered action for the following phase as the studio doors opened and the actors reassembled, faces calm but mind racing. Angel walked back in with a resolute gait, holding her phone. "I have live tweets ready," she said. "We're at #1 globally," Eat said, setting up the monitor showing the trending store. Her voice was laced with a sense of urgency as the team hurried to record every moment, conscious of fans are astonished by the worldwide reaction. As they learned the extent of Karlie's disclosure, emotions were running high. That audience participation had reached fever pitch. The family was split, with some enjoying the attention and others flinching at the intensity. Karlie took a deep breath before speaking steadily and squarely to the viewers on camera. "This journey isn't over," she murmured, her eyes unblinking. As Kirk stood silently behind her and Yondandy looked on from the sidelines with pride, protector of their integrity. The cameras flashed, indicating the moment's force. Reality TV at its most intense. Most fans were moved by Karlie's genuineness and felt a range of emotions as they were able to relate to her vulnerable appearance. As the episode concluded, the director said, the family was left divided, yet bound by the shared experience of bearing their truths under relentless scrutiny. Called cut, and everyone in the cast let out a collective sigh. There was silence for a while before the crew began to applaud. Karlie's tear-stained cheeks gleamed with relief and fear at the same time, impressed by the sincere passion. The aftermath seemed unreal as Kirk placed a soothing hand on her back and Yandandi pulled away for a comforting embrace. Fans are astounded by the tenacity shown. As they awaited the announcement, emotions were running high. They had managed confession, crisis, and reconciliation in the spotlight of the cameras. The family was torn between public pressure and private optimism as editors edited for tomorrow's broadcast. But one thing was certain. Their narrative had as the cameras rolled for the third act of Karlie Red's turbulent trip. The focus switched, and the atmosphere sparked with raw possibility as they entered a new, unexplored chapter. Karlie sat. Kirk loomed at her shoulder, his face a combination of resolve and trepidation, as she raked her fingers through her wet hair on a little vanity mirror off to the side, tears still clinging to her eyelids. They were poised to deal with the next round of inquiries and murmurs that threatened to overwhelm them, while Yondandy lingered close by, arms crossed but eyes gentle with worry. Emotions were running high as anticipation grew, and fans are surprised by the intimacy of this moment as they witness their reality TV stars reveal yet another layer of personal feeling. A voice roared from the monitor's speakers, signaling the return of the live section, leaving the family split between fear of new wounds and hope for recovery. With steely determination, the three of them took their places at a semicircle of stools facing the cameras, and Karlie held back, mustering all the bravery she could. "I learned something last night that made all the difference," she started, her voice faltering, and Kirk reached out, automatically, putting his fingers through hers. When viewers realized that Karlie's pregnancy fear had taken unforeseen twists, they were surprised by her admission of concern. The cameras zoomed closer, catching the faint tremble in both of their clutches. "After our conversation in the conference room," Karlie went on, "I had a private ultrasound to confirm what I felt, because I could feel the fragility underneath the bravado." Her words hung in the air like reverberations in an empty hall. Kirk swallowed hard, nodding in solidarity. Yandi shifted forward. We knew we had to be certain, she said quietly, since there was so much on the line. With a shared goal, the three looked at each other. Crew members paused in mid-motion to take in the seriousness of the situation, as if the studio were breathing with them. As they wait for the next revelation, fans' hearts are racing due to the realization of how vulnerable they are. Karlie closed her eyes and took a minute. The findings came back negative, she whispered, her voice barely above the floor. Before dropping the bombshell, Yandi's stance stiffened as it respired in hers. I'm not pregnant, Karlie said again, letting out a trembling sigh. When the confession hit like a lightning, staff members leaned forward and opened their lips. Fans were taken aback by this turnaround, and feelings of relief and sadness mixed in equal parts, leaving the family split. While some viewers sympathized with Karlie's erratic feelings, others wondered why Kirk Singo quotes his eyes moist with silent sadness and lingering delight that had turned into a complex anguish, and his lips opened, allowing hope to spiral out of control. With a hoarse voice he said, "This changes everything." He closed his eyes and let her palm massage his temples in silent agony. I'm so sorry, Karlie gasped out, her cheeks reddened with remorse. I was ready, he said. I trusted him. I allowed my passion and anxiety to impair my judgment. I led us through conjecture. The soundstage was filled with the echo of regret as the apology sounded genuine and hollow. Kirk's suffering stunned the fans, and their emotions were running high as they linked to his crushed dreams. The family was left feeling both sympathy for Kirk's loss and annoyance at Karlie's poor decision. Why did Yandi pull in closer to Karlie? We're still here, she said, putting a reassuring hand on her knee. You're still you, and Kirk still loves you. This doesn't make anything go away. Karlie nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand, her voice broke as she said, but the world saw me cry for a life that doesn't exist, and they'll mock me for being dramatic. She was afraid of being seen by others. Emotions were strong as echoes of their own fears emerged, and many were stunned by her candor. With an analytical look, Chantal scrolled over the situation, seeing the family's division between the pain of collective judgment and the consolation provided by their unity. Through her phone's social media accounts, the internet is cruel, she said, and they'll turn this into a major meltdown. She touched her screen. We can't let them spin our story, Kirk remarked, looking at Chantal with worry on his face as he revealed popular hashtags, disparaging Karlie for desiring a child at the wrong time. Resolute, we need to take back the story. His remarks inspired the gathering, turning the mood from hopelessness to determination. Fans were astonished by Kirk's leadership, and many were moved by his protective demeanor. A soft tap signaled an unexpected guest, leaving the family torn between admiration for their struggle to control the plot and cynicism of spin techniques. Mama D, Karlie's long-standing mentor, walked into the studio wearing a gown that glistened in the sun and a worn grin. Karlie got up and hurried to hug her, crying as she stated, I heard my girl needed some perspective, continued unabatedly as Mama D held her while whispering wise things that only a mother could say. This world throws punches, Mama D stated firmly. Her presence provided a glimmer of optimism. Remember who you are. You don't need this drama to define you. The family was split and arrived. They felt the wave of parental guidance, and their emotions were running strong. The cameras recorded the reunion before returning to the trio. But Mama D's presence momentarily closed the divide between the critical and supporting groups. Listen, Mama D said, turning to face them all. Life isn't measured by headlines or baby tests. She led Karlie to sit next to Yandi and Kirk. Her comments were full of truth, and Karlie nodded while wiping her face. It's measured by your character when the world watches. She said, I need to rediscover myself. Kirk grasped her hand once more and replied, We will. Yandi gave her a shoulder squeeze. We will, she repeated. Fans are taken aback by their unity. As they saw a family come together, emotions were running high. The only way the family was split apart was by strangers watching yet sharing a same goal. On an adjacent display, a fresh alarm appeared. A rival network's forthcoming clip, which claims to have discovered proof that Karlie intentionally spread stories in order to increase her ratings. The screen scrolled to the headline. Part of the prank is Karlie's tears. The allegation hit like a spear, and the room froze. The team let out a chorus of incredulous and outraged shouts. Anger made Karlie's face flush. Dare they, she spat. Moved forward, clenching his fists. We take them on, he said. Mama D extended her hand. Wait. She managed to catch we answer with facts, not anger. The storm was once again subdued by her serene voice. The magnitude shocks fans. Of the stains, they sympathized with Karlie's outrage, and emotions were running high. Despite being split, the family was guided by Mama D. They were ready to defend themselves. Yan Dandy gave the producer the signal to start the piece about why the truth is more important than anything else. The mood changed from crisis to confrontation when the team cut off the conversation and refocused the cameras on the three, who were now surrounded by Mama D. The story was ready to swing again. Karlie straightened, her eyes glimmering with resolve. She promised to present everything uncut. We'll display our humanity, our humor, and our heartbreak. Kirk gave a resolute nod. He claimed there was no more hiding. Yandi's chin went up. Our tale belongs to us. Their audacious posture shocks fans. They felt the tide start to change, and emotions were running high. Even though they were being watched from every side, the family was prepared to come clean and take back their story in the most intense episode of the season. For a brief period, the studio lights darkened, as if catching its breath. A tense silence was created by the low hum of machinery. The red on-air light then came back to life, indicating the last part of this confessional roller coaster. Yandi Smith, Kirk Frost, and Karlie Red stepped forward into the light, their shoulders squared. The allegation from the rival network flashed. On a display behind them, part of the prank is Karlie's tears. The words dared them to answer, hovering like a gauntlet. Fans were taken aback by the claim's boldness, and everyone was unsure whether these three would back down or face the smear head-on. The family was split apart. While some hoped for a victorious response, others prepared for an emotional breakdown. After taking a deep breath to regain her composure, Karlie spoke to the camera in a quiet but firm tone. Rumor has it that the whole trip was planned to boost ratings. She started looking upon Yandi and Kirk for support. But why would I risk revealing my worst fears on live television if it were a stunt? Like a challenge, the question reverberated across the studio. With his headset put away, Kirk moved forward. Next to her, displaying an uncommon vulnerability, he added, "I've known Karlie for years." In an emotionally charged voice, instead of sitting here and crying about a pregnancy scare that never materialized, she would do something spectacular. If she desired notoriety, the staff was shaken by his unabashed honesty. Kirk's protective vow startled fans, and many felt the pain of his allegiance piercing the rumors, causing emotions to run high. Families were split once again, this time between supporters and skeptics. In Yandi, why narrow the distance between them? Look ferociously. "We are not here to amuse tabloids," she said. "Our purpose is to expose the sloppy reality of living in the limelight." She stopped, allowing the weight of genuineness settles. "Prepare yourself for the raw if you're looking for drama. Unaltered version." Her remarks sounded like a call to action. Fans are taken aback by her bold posture. As they supported her reluctance to give up, emotions were running high. The family seemed to come together despite being caught in the crossfire of rumors and disclosures under the force of her defiance. The studio doors then sprang open, and Snoop Dogg, an unexpected visitor, strode into a group gasp. His demeanor was one of confed. She was seen shaking her head on camera, fake tears while mouthing the words. Karlie's face stiffened as the beginning cast hazy with pain. "Mimi," she said, her eyes full of incredulity, voice with icy assurance emanating from her chin. Mimi walked onto the scene. I thought, this is more drama, as I watched her say that while keeping my eyes fixed on Karlie, more than I can manage.